Jim,
Fuck off, I say.
we have to record the episode still, Jim.
Who's sick? I'm not sick. You're sick, Justin. You're sick. Trying to make me go out there among everything. You should have friends, they say. Well, I got the jump on you, Mum, in the age of social distancing. I got the jump on you. Coronavirus, COVID-19, the Wuhan virus if you're a Republican politician trying to be a bit racialist about it. Whatever you call it, there's no denying that the global pandemic has become quite a bit of a problem in recent weeks. I've lived through a lot of scary public sicknesses in my time: mad cow disease, SARS, foot and mouth disease, bird flu, the rage virus. But the spread of and response to coronavirus has been undeniably different, more serious, more personally affecting to pretty much everybody, and far more impactful upon events and their associated businesses than any other health concern I've witnessed in my lifetime. So thank Christ for Ninja, who confirmed finally that coronavirus was starting to get real at last after learning about Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson getting it. I mean, that's it. Now that celebrities have it and a Fortnite live streamer has learned that the celebrities have it, coronavirus is officially real. It's on now. It's starting to come for our beloved Hollywood stars. Who's next? Poor families without health insurance? Well, nobody gives a fuck about that. Kurt Fuller? He could get it. You know, Kurt Fuller? He was in Ghostbusters 2 and Supernatural, plays a lot of arseholes. All I know is that rich celebrities with easily accessible healthcare finally have it, so it's time to be concerned. What's up, little pickles? It's me, your royal succulents. Don't worry about it, this influencer isn't a king yet. I'm here to give you some advice on the coronavirus outbreak because Lord knows, as someone who plays video games on the internet, it's my job to be your sole source of information. First off, a little tip from me to you in terms of personal hygiene. Don't piss on your hands, and if you do, make sure to run a rag over them. After all, public safety is your safety too. Second of all, and this is very important, food hygiene. Don't eat out of somebody else's box of Tide Pods. Buy your own. They're very affordable. Now, there's been a lot of talk of social distancing. Don't go out. Don't have any friends. That's really difficult for me to do because I'm cucumber succulent and I'm so popular. I'm so popular. And that's really, literally all you need to know. Now you're fully armed and fully prepared to deal with the coronavirus, my little pickles. Event after event has been cancelled in the wake of coronavirus's spread, and the video game industry is no exception. There are no exceptions. Not even WWE, which doesn't bother giving its worldwide television stars health insurance and makes them constantly tour and perform outside of its TV shows, pushing them to such a degree they become injured with greater frequency than other wrestlers despite working a softer style than average. Even Vince McMahon, a greedy piece of shit as well, he's not given his wrestlers time off, but he's got them wrestling in empty venues, which is weird and awkward. I mean, more than wrestling usually is. At the time of talking, WrestleMania hasn't been cancelled. That's scheduled for April 5th. But if Vince McMahon, greedy piece of shit, does have to cancel it, which he probably should, he'd do it with a bigger grudge than a scary girl with long hair and a big spooky eyes. Back to the game industry, where events are dropping like boomers with coronavirus. GDC, the Game Developers Conference, was cancelled at practically the last minute, screwing over a lot of people who'd already made travel arrangements. But the big one, the one that really turned heads and probably made Ninja worry a little bit, is E3. Despite going off the rails and losing a ton of relevance in recent years, the Electronic Entertainment Expo has remained a central hub of video game news, an annual event where we see a bunch of new games announced, receive reports of upcoming titles from the show floor, and maybe even see a glimpse of a console. In fact, with 2020 set to be the year of a new console generation, E3 was looking to be a pretty big one for the Entertainment Software Association, which, to its credit, has responded to coronavirus efficiently and with plenty of pre-warning. I may despise the ESA and everything it stands for, but they did the right thing to their own detriment. And it is a detriment. Cancelling E3 any year would deal a significant blow to the organisers, but at a time of waning potency for the beleaguered trade show, the timing couldn't be worse. E3 has become less and less important over the years, thanks in no small part to the horrifying rise of social media, as well as the instant access to audiences provided by live streaming platforms such as Twitch and Mixer, thank Christ for Ninja. Nintendo was ahead of the curve on this one, abandoning E3 hosted press conferences as far back as 2011 with the very first live streamed Nintendo Direct. Throughout the course of the 2010s, Nintendo Direct has become the company's best method for communicating with its audience, and Nintendo now airs multiple Directs a year, sometimes for a bunch of game announcements and updates, sometimes to showcase a single game. More recently, Sony had started to back out of E3 too, preferring to go the Nintendo Direct route, and while Microsoft still had plans to attend this year, it had already been dabbling in hosting its own events for a while. Even without the loss of major platform holders, E3 was struggling to be the marquee game event of the year, with events like GDC and PAX commonly being used to deliver big news as well. It also didn't help that the ESA now has and forever will have a track record of inept negligence when it comes to safeguarding the personal data of attendees, effectively doxing thousands of professionals thanks to a lack of security and a provably willful ignorance of attempts to let them know their security was shit. With coronavirus having brought E3 to its knees, the event's mainstays are now seeking other methods of delivering their news, and there's only really been one solution: do that Nintendo Direct thing. Both Microsoft and Ubisoft have confirmed they'll now host digital events, joining Nintendo and Sony, who are going to do it anyway. And for them, despite the loss of a physical location, there are significant pluses to doing it this way. For one thing, it's cheaper. Without the cost of flying teams out to LA, booking a hosting venue, and putting on a big flashy extravagant event, these companies are going to learn that they can get their information out there just as quickly, just as effectively, on their own terms with their own platform, and all they really need to get that instant effective access is a Twitch account. This isn't to say there are not benefits to having game industry members in one location. That's how games get pitched, where deals are made, you know. There are little meeting rooms at the top of the convention centre where all this shit goes down. But you can do that at another event. One that won't dox you, for example. This is something we've argued in prior video columns and will continue to do so. Publishers don't really need E3. With the live streaming platforms just sitting there waiting to be used, any company can set up a live stream at any time of year and get their announcements out for the cost of a significantly scaled back studio appearance. It's a lesson the game industry is about to learn en masse, and it's the kind of education E3 really doesn't need folks to be getting. Also, the ESA doxed thousands of prior attendees, which they didn't do on purpose, but did so incompetently it would have been better if they had done it on purpose. They shouldn't be in charge of a fucking teapot, let alone an industry event. Coronavirus has impacted pretty much every single industry, not just event cancellations, but travel restrictions, and of course the health concern itself. For you see, it's not just Tom Hanks with the thing, everybody is at some form of risk, and officials' heels dragged so much on this thing that containment is, well, a lot of it is bolting the door after the horse has fucked off. and died of coronavirus. This isn't CJD, this isn't something most people will just hear about on the news. Coronavirus is close, and as Ninja pointed out, it's finally very real. Now that doesn't mean the vast majority of us should panic. The vast majority of you will be fine even if you get it. It is serious, and the cancellations of all these events while they suck is not, as some people are saying, an irrational panic. Eliminating crowded events and advising social distance is wise at this point. I say this as someone who, well, whose wrestling career is pretty much dead for a few weeks if not months, and while that's a fucking big blow to that career, I understand why it has to happen. And of course, washing your hands and not asking people to cough directly into your mouth will up your chances of staying healthy, staying okay. Panic buying toilet paper and listening to anything Donald Trump says will not. But you know what really might have helped here in the US? A healthcare system that wasn't a completely fucking lethal joke. I mean, I'm not saying American healthcare is barbaric, bordering on genocidal, but it does kill an inordinate amount of poor people via shit conditions and institutionalized neglect. I'm not saying American healthcare is pathetically inadequate when it comes to the containment and treatment of any given disease. But you know what the people I know have been concerned about more than any one symptom of the virus? Their lack of insurance coverage to actually be treated if they need it. In America, so many people are not afraid of getting sick as much as they're afraid of the cost of getting better. And I'm not saying that capitalism has been hoisted by its own disease-covered petard, but it does seem to me that a socio-economic system where people can neither afford medical treatment nor take time off work for fear they will be shit-canned is kind of a deadly combination when it comes to the ineffective containment of a highly contagious virus. And it does seem to me that the fact major corporations are losing massive amounts of money and stock markets are crashing is kind of the fault of the very system those corporations and bankers exploit on a daily basis at the expense of a working class that is most at risk because people can't afford not to drag their virulent asses out of their homes every single day to go to work unless that work suddenly told them that it was okay to work from home despite having told them that that was impossible in the past. And while we're on that subject, I think it's very strange that ISPs like Comcast are suddenly removing data caps for the duration of this situation, almost as if the internet should be treated like a fucking utility at any given time. It just astounds me what a number of corporations can suddenly afford to do. Same goes for landlords stopping evicting people lately. Maybe it's good for social health overall if things like that didn't happen in the first place. I mean, you get these fucking people who are like, ooh, poor people shouldn't be able to afford healthcare. Wait a minute, why am I getting sick? Why am I suddenly getting sick? How does fucking contagion work? How do you stop contagion? Maybe if everyone could afford vaccines or to take time off so that their immune system doesn't fail due to stress. For fuck's sake, making sure everyone has a basic living wage. Making sure everyone has access to healthcare. That's one way to help stop diseases from spreading. It's the important fucking way. Have you ever played Shadow of Memories? Weird little game, that. Anyway, back to the topic of video games. I've had issues with my insurance provider this year, the main issue being that it was absolute shit and completely worthless and would have effectively doubled my costs for no gain. As a result, I've been having to self-pay for my medication for a while, and one thing that has struck me as disgustingly remarkable is that every time I pick up a prescription, the pharmacist reacts with absolute disbelief that I can pay for it. Now, I'm in an incredibly fortunate position where I actually can afford it. Not without taking a significant dent to my income, but I can manage it, and it's an alien concept to the people I'm paying. Imagine that if you can. Just imagine that. Some of you don't have to. Pharmacists do not expect you to be able to afford the medicine they are selling you. Medicine which in most cases is incredibly cheap to produce but is controlled by individual pharmaceutical companies that get to dictate their own skyrocketing prices because it's, well, it's medicine. You need it. They have it, and if some of you die as a result of their curative paywall, well, it's all worth it so long as others can pay the very pricey piper. Fortunately, this country elected a fucking idiot in 2016 whose attempts to minimise and cover up the impact of the virus have completely and totally not at all helped. Hopefully, the sheer amount of lies and reckless misinformation will kick that coronavirus to the curb, but hey, if it doesn't, and if you are worried about coronavirus, why not just have some health insurance? Pop yourself outside, find the nearest tree, and gather some off the fucking branches. I think the worst game I've ever played in my life was Gift on the PlayStation 2. If you've never heard of it, don't worry, almost nobody has, and even if they did, they never needed to know about it. It was nominally a platform game with controls so bad it was borderline unplayable, and yet, when I looked it up to make sure I didn't just imagine a game being that shit, I was dumbfounded to learn that it actually got critical praise at the time. What the fuck is Eurogamer doing giving it 7 out of 10? And PC Power Play called it what? A challenging and controversial tour de force? What? Licky what?
Are you kidding? This game deffages my childhood. This is where I all started.
What the fuck? Stop liking Gift. Why are you liking Gift? Stop it. As I reflect upon the script I'm looking at, I realise I maybe should have talked about video games. I should have been talking about video games in this video game video, but I stopped talking about video games and instead used coronavirus as a launching point to just go fucking off about how our society and the way we live in this society has made coronavirus worse, and that the losses of major corporations are their own fucking fault because they all had a hand in the financial disparity and medical fuckery that will only ever make the spread of disease worse. But when you think about it, that's still on topic for this particular series, because it turns out that the same systems allowing for unregulated gambling in video games is responsible in no small part for the spread of coronavirus, because everything is connected and nothing happens in a bubble, politically, medically or otherwise. And if this show can get even a few people to apply the logic that makes them hate electronic arts to a wider cultural context, then maybe doing this fuck-awful show for 10 years will have been worth it. The ESA doxed thousands of people. I understand it's been a bit of a strange Jimquisition this week, but then again, I just watched an episode of SmackDown that had no fucking audience. So it's a bit of a strange time overall. I do like to think, however, that a point was made, a good time was had. Justin, I've got nothing else to say. Thank God for me. Ow!